Thanks to Planta for sponsoring today's video. Hey guys, if you missed it, I'm in the middle of a major laundry room makeover, and one big feature I wanted to add in there was some shoe storage. We have a little bit of a shoe issue. Every time I turn around, there's some slippers or tennis shoes laying around, and I'm guilty of it too, but we need a fix. So I think this Ikea Hemnes shoe cabinet is the perfect solution. It doesn't take up a ton of space, it's easy to grab and go, and it fits a good amount of shoes, so I think it'll be the perfect solution. The only thing is that it's pretty basic and boring, so I'm going to dress it up with some trim, some paint, and some new door hardware, and give it a little makeover. So in the description below, you'll find all of the tools and materials that I'm using for this project, and I think that's about it. Let's get into it. So for me, there's a time and place to do custom versus Ikea, for example. This is one of those times where the Ikea just makes sense. I priced it out to do a little custom shoe cabinet, and it would have cost more to build it myself. So pushing the easy button, and I think especially since I can elevate it with some trim and some paint, it's a good move. Okay, so I have the shoe cabinet assembled. I set it in place here underneath the window just to see what it would look like. It's kind of at an awkward height. It's too low to be flush with the windowsill, and it's too high to be able to trim out this window completely. So my plan is to raise it. After I secure a windowsill board here, I'll raise this so it's nice and even all the way across, and then I'll install my window trim around the face of the window. So this is gonna have to come up a few inches, and then I'll take some 1x boards to fill in the gap along the front and the sides, and then I'll install my base trim and wrap it all the way around the base. I also have this little detail trim. I'm gonna use this to add a little frame around the doors to dress it up a little bit, and then get everything painted so I can get it secured in place. Before we move on to the next step, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Planta. Planta is an award-winning plant care app that helps over 7 million plant lovers worldwide take care of their plants. With over 32 million plants being cared for every week, it's no wonder Planta is trusted by so many. Now that spring is here and the weather is warming up, I'm all about getting my outdoor plants repotted and revitalized. But I don't want to stop there. I'm also bringing in some fresh, vibrant green life indoors too. It's the perfect time to spruce up the house with a few new plants, and with Planta, it's never been easier to keep them thriving. With Planta's intelligent care schedule, I get reminders when it's time to water, mist, fertilize, clean, and repot my plants, everything based on each plant's specific needs. If you've been following me for a while, you've seen the miraculous recovery of our fiddle-leaf fig tree. It was once struggling and down to one leaf, but is now thriving with new growth, and it's all thanks to Planta's guidance. Seeing it come back to life has made me feel so inspired to add more plants to our home this spring. Planta is free to download, but I highly recommend getting the premium version to get access to all the great features. If you're thinking about adding some green to your space this season, you can use the link in the description below to get 20% off the 12-month Planta premium plan. That link is valid for 30 days, and once again, you can find it in the description below. Okay, so to find the measurements of my trim pieces, I took the height of this panel, 14 1/4, and then I subtracted 3 inches because I'll have a 1.5 inch gap here and a 1.5 inch gap here. And then I did the same thing for this. This is 17.5, so I subtracted 3 inches so that I have a 1.5 inch gap on that end and on that end. To give myself a little guide of where I need to secure the trim pieces, I'm just gonna mark out 1.5 inches all the way around, just so I know where to line up my trim pieces. I'm gonna throw on a tiny bit of wood glue and then tape them in place. Mark 1.5 inches all the way around. Got some wood filler to fill my nail holes. Some 180 grit sandpaper to roughen it up a little bit for primer. I've got my Wagner paint sprayer and a little detail nozzle, which will be good for spraying a nice smooth surface. Some leftover primer to use up. So the primer's dry. I just did a really light sand, and now I'm going to do my top coat. This is Swiss Coffee by Benjamin Moore, and it's the same color as my walls. I marked my studs in the wall, and Devin's gonna hold this in place while I secure it with some screws. I'm using some 2.5-inch screws to go through the back of that unit and then into studs in the wall. I do have an outlet back here, but I didn't have to move it or anything. With this door open, we can still access it pretty easily, so just leaving it as is. So now I'm going to cut a filler piece to go in this front gap and also to cover these side gaps. And then I'll cut my base trim and install it all the way around. Here's my blocking for the bottom of the cabinet. I'm gonna secure it to the legs and to the back wall with 2-inch brad nails. Here's how the bottom looks. It looks a little rough, but once the base trim is on, it's gonna clean it up nice. This piece I had to bring out flush with this leg so that the base trim meets up in the corner here. I cut all of my base trim. I'm just using a standard 3¼ inch base trim to wrap around the entire base. Next step is to get the doors back on. I need to go around and fill all the nail holes and caulk the seams. I need to do my window trim, and then it's just some touch-up paint and the hardware. Okay, so I installed the base trim yesterday, and I'm not loving how this looks down here. There's just too much of a gap, and it looks a little funky. So I think I'm gonna take the base trim off and install some taller base trim. This is 5¼ inches high, and that was only 3¼ inches. So I think this will help break up the gap a little bit, and we'll see how that looks. I'm gonna keep the same base trim on my wall, so over here I'll have to just notch out that base trim to install my new trim. Before installing the new base trim, I'm gonna add one more layer of 1x board to the front of it to beef it up a little bit. Oh yeah. So I added a 1x to the front of this to break up that gap, and I think it'll look so much better. I lined it up to match with the same height as this side 1x, and then I cut my trim. This is 5¼ inches to wrap all the way around. And then I just notched out this trim that was already installed. So it'll wrap around like this. And it'll hide all those ugly gaps And this looks so much better with this extra little tier to break up that front gap. Okay, so that's it for the Ikea Hemnes shoe cabinet. There's so many different ways to customize this project. You can raise it up and add some trim like I did. You can cut off the legs and add some new legs. You can add some fun trim to the doors. So many options, so I hope this gives you some good ideas. On another note, I've made some really great progress in the laundry room and I can't wait to share it with you in the next video.